Yeah, wait.
This is not a show and might not even be a connection. Here's Judah and guest.
This is not even a show. I'm here with Michael Katuzis, and we are live.
For now,
For now.
considering our subject, we're going to be talking about.
Well, we got lots of good subjects in the pipeline. Today we're
Yeah.
going to try something a little lighter. We're going to talk about what would you call it? The genre of horror, right?
Yeah.
And so that's something. Have you? So the reason I thought this was an interesting topic, you proposed it. One of the reasons I thought it was an interesting topic was because I have actually helped produce a few homemade
Horror flicks.
horror flicks. Yes.
Yeah, okay.
And whenever so a couple times I've tried to do creative videos with clients and what have you, and it seems to be we joke. A friend of mine and I joke like we're not really horrific dudes, but it always seems to turn into it's easier to do horror.
Yeah.
And so what is that about? And
Why is it easier to do?
yeah, I wonder why it's easier to do horror than say, like it seems like our drama always tends to, well, it's just easier to sort of make it horror, you know?
Well, I don't know. First of all, let's explain to them what we're going to be talking about, and then
Okay.
maybe we'll get into that.
Go ahead.
Me? Okay. Well, long story short, we're going to discuss whether horror, you can have Christian horror, or whether Christians should take part in horror movie production, that sort of thing. The discussion came up between me and a Christian friend. He's a playwright, and he's done acting for theater, and he's interested in doing script writing, and he's writing scripts. And we were talking about types of movies, and he said he wanted to write a horror flick. And I was like, a horror flick? Why would you want to write a horror flick? He's like, oh, because they're good. He likes, the scare of things. And he's like, but I do a Christian horror flick. It won't be like the rest. I was like, a Christian horror flick? It's like, what does that look like? You explain this to me. And we got into this big, long discussion that got a little heated at times. Not heated, but he got a little irritated on some of the questions I asked. But it remained civil. It wasn't like bad or anything like that. But he was of the ilk. He was of the position you can have. There is such thing as Christian horror. That horror as itself as a genre is not bad. That it's something that you can partake in and do.
Well, I think we have to define the terms. What is horror? Because I think there's slasher horror and gruesome horror, but then I think there's also I'm not a fan of horror movies.
Okay, neither am I, for the record, but I've seen quite a few. Go ahead.
However, there's two pieces of art that I actually reverse redacted on reverse redaction, but of course I forgot the name. It was like The House. It was on Netflix. Oh, The House. I can't remember. Emily's House? No, I can't remember. And then the other one was The Conjuring. And The Conjuring actually could be interpreted, actually both of them could be interpreted as Christian horror because they had family-centric and spiritually, religiously centric themes, positive themes that came out of it, and but they didn't use so much of the blood and guts and
What did
zombies.
they use? Just curious.
The jump scares. They use a lot of jump scares and imagery, like it could be construed as horror in the sense as graphic or what have you, um, but but I mean, is showing a struggling or dead person, is that necessarily, like, I mean, they do that in other, like in dramas and
Yeah.
other genres, and it's not considered evil or
Yeah. Yeah.
distasteful, So is there a tasteful way to do it? And
Well,
yeah, go
let's
ahead.
let's establish what horror is. It says Britannica. Here we go. Horror film is a motion picture that's calculated to cause intense repugnance, fear, or dread. And when we watch these things, we watch them for entertainment. So basically, we're watching things that cause intense dread, fear, repugnance, or entertainment. So on that standard, you know, I'm not, I mean, just if that's the case, starting off there, I just see red flags immediately. Like the
Well,
point,
obviously, yeah.
yeah,
But
because then, go ahead.
well, so the other show I was trying to remember was The Haunting of Hill House. It's a show on Netflix.
Okay.
I would recommend it to. I think I would. Yeah, I think I would recommend it to anybody. I'm trying to think if it's clean. It's pretty clean, and just has a really interesting and important theme about family, about reality, about trying to remember. It's been a while since I watched it and talked about it, but about sacrifice too, about self-sacrifice,
Okay.
and
The
sometimes
good
it
kind of
takes-
self-sacrifice.
yeah, the
Okay,
good
yeah.
kind. Yeah, the good,
The good
kind.
kind.
Of self-sacrifice. So,
So-
like a
yeah.
father sacrificing for his children type thing.
Yeah.
A
Okay.
mother, just actually discerning evil, discerning what is, because in this show's semi spoiler alert, it's hard to tell what is. You actually, the viewer doesn't actually realize until the end the full nature of what's going on, and you can't really tell who's in the right, who's in the wrong. There's discrepancies in that sort of thing. So I think that you can. I think that you can have art with repugnance. I mean, I think that's not disputable, right? Art can be
No.
repugnant.
See, and this is what I got into when I was talking with my friend, because he's like, is it then bad to have something scary? I'm like, no. Take Lord of the Rings for example. Ring wraiths are terrifying. They're scary. I wouldn't take my 6-year-old. Hey, come watch. Hissing, screaming, Black Death, undead creature. Chase these hobbits through the woods or whatever. But
Also, give it to me.
yeah, yeah, that guy. Yeah, that's right. I'm precious. Yeah.
Well,
So
that was Bilbo. Give it to me.
oh wait, no, yeah, you're right. When he like reaches out for it,
Eyes are bulging out.
bulging out. Yeah. I don't think the issue is whether things are scary or terrifying, but the point of a horror movie is to scare and to terrify and to jolt. And as a result, that's the point. There's nothing necessarily redeeming in it. There is something redeeming in Lord of the Rings. Like, for example, you got these ring wraiths representing an evil force, Sauron, an evil dark lord who's like a Satan figure, and there is servants. Naturally, they're going to be ugly, mean, nasty, have a fear about them. And it's natural to fear, and when you counter evil, it's going to be ugly and dark. But there's a way where the fear is as you're seeing people encounter it, and you'll still see good kind of overcome. I guess this is what I liked about Tolkien. Tolkien modeled his universe kind of after our own, the reality after our own. There's a godhead figure in Lord of the Rings. You'd have to read Silmarillion to really get a background on it. And he kind of almost sets up the Tolkien Middle-earth universe like ours, where there's a Satan figure, there's a god, a rebellion in heaven, and
The
type of thing.
Valor.
Yeah. And so naturally evil is going to be part of it, but the story is not about evil. The story isn't to just terrify you and jar your soul and make you go scream and, you know, get PTSD for fun. You know, oh, that was so great. Yeah, you know, I'm almost, you know, had a heart attack. But I think horror's point, especially as you see it now, that's the end. The end result is to just scare you, jar you. And as a result, you know, what dark thing, twisted thing can we do? And I feel like as you even watch it, it devolves because eventually you get used to it. You know, you see people in battle, soldiers will get used to carnage of battle. And, you know, but sometimes they'll see even worse things. They're like, holy crap. But you get used to things. And because the point is to scare and to terrify, you got to get darker and deeper and more terrifying. And it actually even doesn't mirror reality that much. Like you'll see the supernatural in these horror films far more powerful than they are in real life. Like Satan is real, his demons are real, and they have power. They're more powerful than we are. But you know, you had 6,000 of them when Jesus showed up saying, hey, please don't throw us in the abyss right now. You know, if you just tell us to go to that, you know, those pigs over there, we'll do it. They were like pleading for mercy. And he's like, go, you know, and they went and the pigs ran down. And you're familiar with this story, right?
Yeah.
But you see, it's a total difference. You see the power of God is clearly supreme. You'll watch these horror movies and the priest will come, you know, devil will come and he'll just bite the crucifix, rip off the priest's face and play chess with his toes, you know. It's just like.
But there's a problem here, and that is that you haven't seen many horror movies, right?
I've seen a fair amount.
Okay.
I saw a few because people, my friends will be, hey, let's watch it. You got to watch this, okay? And then I'm like, you know.
Yeah. Sam Tenuto says, "Love the topic, guys. About to watch Empire Strikes Back
at the drive-in.
Wow,
yeah.
That's back up in Illinois. What was that? It was up in. He's up there in the north. Where is it? Can't remember. I think it was in Libertyville or somewhere like that. Anyways, so thank you so much for tuning in. Appreciate you, Sam. You're an awesome guy. Yeah. Now the thing is, okay, that I feel like you may be. It sounds to me like you are oversimplifying horror. I think you're right that there are those movies that do that, and I would say that those are not Christian. But that's not the question. The question are... Oh, McHenry.
McHenry. Okay.
Thanks. I love that guy. All right, yeah. So that's a great drive-in. I went and saw Iron Man there. Anyways, okay, yeah. So... that's not the question. The question is whether or not the art form can be used. Can a Christian narrative be presented using the genre? And I don't know. I don't think it's an obvious no.
Well, this is my thing. When you look at Lord of the Rings, the dark characters are part of it, but in the end, you see it overcome, and you see it overcome in a good way. I'll put it like this. All right. When you look at horror, like I said, the point, and we have to get specific, okay? That'll help prove the point. So, for example, I remember I saw Jason Goes to Hell. All right. You ever seen that one? I was a teenager. Friends like, hey, let's go watch this. Yeah. Never seen any Jason movies. This is the first one I saw. Wish I had never seen Jason Goes to Hell. It was horribly disgusting. All right. It opens up with your stereotypical naked woman running as Jason's chasing after her, and special forces guys open up on him and with machine guns and blow him to little pieces. I'm talking about heart explodes and it's like pulsating. Okay. Now for the record, I don't watch these sort of things now, but I'm just telling you, I'm recalling what I had seen in the past.
Yeah.
Now, they proceed to pick up the pieces for study. And the coroner is looking at this beating heart, and he gets mesmerized by it and then starts eating it. And then it possesses him. The point is to revile, to be it's like...
You're using these like horror exploitation movies as your examples. I'm talking about...
I can only go off of what I've seen. I've seen The Ring.
Ring. The Ring. The
okay.
Ring is...
Ring. No, which is the one where he's in Japan and this little kid The Grudge.
Grudge.
I'm sorry, The Grudge. I
Yeah,
saw
the
The Grudge.
Grudge, but the Ring actually has some redeeming.
I haven't seen The Ring. I haven't seen The Ring. I got it confused. Grudge.
The Ring, The Conjuring, House on. What did I say?
House on Haunted Hill.
Is that it? Okay, and
That sounds like I've heard of that one before.
Yeah, no. It's the house on. Shoot, I always mess
Haunted
up.
Hill, I thought.
The Haunting of Hill House. The Haunting
Oh,
of
okay.
Hill House. Because the House on Haunted Hill is another movie. It's a movie, but the Haunting of Hill House and the Omen. Many of these are like they deal with spirituality. They deal with possession. You know,
But do they deal? I mean, yeah, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
in a way that doesn't glorify it and shows overcoming of it.
But how do they overcome? Because I can go into Jason Goes to Hell on how they overcome his spirit that's doing it, and I don't know how I'm going to do it without being vulgar because of actually what they do to.
No. Don't use
like,
that as a-
I'm not going to. Well, I'll put it like this: they use the occult to overcome the occult,
Yeah.
and that's satanic in its.
No.
If that's an ideal, that's satanic. I mean,
in the examples I used of the house, the Haunting of Hill House, and The Conjuring, they overcome it through revelation and truth.
explain. Go. You like give like if spoiler alert. If you wanted to watch it, tune out. But
Okay.
I haven't heard it. I'm not going to see it. So go ahead and
You
go
should.
into detail.
It's good.
Go into detail. Where?
Okay, spoiler alert. I can't remember completely, but so in the Haunting of Hill House, they realize. So it was this, no, it was the so they overcome it through sacrifice. The parents. It's interesting. Not only so the house demands some kind of a
Sacrifice.
no demands like it needs somebody to live there basically.
Okay.
And so the parents just say, you know, they help their kids escape and they just live there. And it's like
What happens if you don't live there? Like you walk out of the house.
you get haunted.
So a
So-
spirit follows you and haunts you until you bow to its will.
Something like that. Yeah. There's all kinds of weird stuff that happens, but it's more about the possession when you're in the house. It draws you back to it. You know.
So
And
possession. So it's drawing you back, and you're under its power, and you have to stay in this house so that it doesn't do what?
Well, it released the children. You know, it released the.
So I'll let go of your loved ones if you offer yourselves to my bloody possession.
But I mean,
No,
these
that's my point. Isn't that
These are
dark?
metaphors. Yeah, but so what?
Well, see, this is the thing, though. I think fiction. All right, we learned about this in my mass communications class. In undergraduate, I was a journalism/mass communications major, and people have a hard time separating entertainment, from reality. A lot of times, we take our cues from entertainment. Believe it or not, they say that entertainment influences. We look at our music. You know, as the music gets darker, people listen to it get darker. As our movies get darker, people watch it get darker. It's looked at as a way to influence. All right, and everyone's like, "Oh, no, it doesn't influence me." And yet, if you actually take a step back and look at viewing choices, you'll see how people's viewing choices have darkened over time. You can see how you've gotten used to things that in the past might have revolted you. It works that way with video games. I remember I used to play video games where you're my age. You remember the game Altered Beast? Sega Genesis, where you get these little these two Greek soldiers that fight against the armies of the undead, and they get these little orbs, and it turns them into werewolves and dragons, and they fight and stuff like that.
Yeah,
And you're fighting all these undead guys. I remember when I first saw that, I was kind of like, that's a horribly dark game, bad. But eventually I started playing games, and eventually that had elements of it, that type of stuff in it, but on a milder tone, and then it worked up to the next, and the next, and next. And by the end of my video game days, I was playing games where you become a demon, and as a demon, you're hunting down these bad guys and slaying them, and you're overthrowing Loki by becoming a demon to best him with his own evil powers that have been bestowed on you. I'm like, and I remember one time I just took a step back and I was like, what the heck? How did this happen? And it starts small like that. And believe it or not, there's a lot of stuff you do pick up from, things that we watch and draw enjoyment from and entertainment by. It does influence us. And so with movies, same thing. I mean, if you watch like hyper violent stuff, after a while you get desensitized to it. If you watch a lot of sex and stuff like that, you get desensitized to it. I remember I had friends like boobs or whatever, seen that before, but there was a time when that wasn't so common to them and they're like, but then they get almost jaded, desensitized. That's what it is. And certain things I don't think we should get desensitized to. But go ahead.
But I'm not talking about gratuitous, because what you're talking about is gratuitous violence, gratuitous horror. I'm talking about art using horror elements to tell a message. So the Haunting of Hill House, that's how it ends. But the whole thing is about dealing with the supernatural versus psychological. What's real?
But see, this is the thing. All right, you got a movie that's saying, okay, basically, all right, I'm going to take what you've told me. This house where they sacrifice themselves so their kids can go free. They're possessed. They got to stay in the possessed house.
No, they're not possessed. But
they're bowing to this malevolent spirit that will somehow hurt them in some way, shape, or form unless they do it and let the kids can go free, right?
But it's a metaphor, though. It's a metaphor for like letting. So they were it's too complicated to just oversimplify it like that. The father was trying to control his family and trying to control them. So both the mom and the father were trying to control them through fear, one way or another. One was fearful, the other was, but both of them were trying to protect their family by controlling them, and they have to realize they have to let them go at the end, and the children have to let their parents go. A metaphor for as we move on with our lives, and many of us our parents pass away and we move on with our life. I thought it was very beautiful. It has like themes of searching for home. The Hill House. It's like this it's just this like a labyrinth of a house. And it's like a metaphor for life, and
so it's a good ending.
Yeah, I thought so. Yeah.
So mom and dad are stuck in this house that's possessed by a demon. The house is.
Well, I don't know if it's possessed by a demon.
A spirit.
I don't know if it's a spirit.
What is it? The house? Just, hey, how you doing? I'm a house. I mean, like, I guess what I'm saying is actually I feel like this is one of the things that I get to. Is that I feel like when horror as a genre starts to scare, shock, invoke terror, that kind of thing, that's the point, to entertain. To me, that's a dark starting place. I don't think this has a place with God. I mean, if anything is good, holy, pure, think on these things. I think that's Philippians 4, somewhere in there. So the focus is on something dark, and and the point is to be is to draw pleasure from being scared. And it's not.
I don't believe that. No, I don't think so at all.
Well, why do you watch it?
Why do you watch anything? Why do we look at art?
Well, there's reasons we look at art. Like, right. I'll give you an example.
Exactly. You're oversimplifying.
No. It's think about this for a second. All right. You might I like epic movies that are just sweeping. It's got the whole thing: intrigue, action, romance, politic, whatever, everything, stuff that's got moral messages, where you see certain things played up.
So you derive pleasure from it.
Yes. It's entertaining. It's good to see. Now that doesn't mean everything that's epic is good. There's some that are bad, but there's certain genres that I'm like, I don't know how you can make that redeemable per se. Because it's like I said, the point of a horror movie is to scare, There's even masochistic elements, or not masochistic, sadistic elements to it. Like a lot of these slasher and horror films that you're talking about, the whole point is to watch
I'm
a
not
teenage.
talking about slasher,
But
no,
they're part of no.
You're talking about the slasher film.
Bringing it back around. If the point is to scare,
No, the point is not to scare.
I'll read the definition again. It's a motion picture calculated to cause intense repugnance, fear, or dread. I mean, the same idea is there. A film with very frightening, unnatural things happen. That's Cambridge.
It doesn't say the point is to scare.
It says the film in which very frightening. I mean, that's the point. Where else are you going for?
No. You can use repugnance to teach a lesson. You can. I mean, often so most of history is filled with fairy tales and stories. Most of the stories in the Bible are horrific to teach a lesson. I mean, you've got.
Is it horror, or is it? There are some things in it that are like, wow, that's bad.
I mean, when
I wouldn't call it horror.
When a dude bashes kids' heads in with a rock, I think that's horror.
But this is the thing. You're talking about a something that's going on, an event that's descriptive about something that's going on, and a guy did that or whatever. Mm-hmm. But we're talking about stories where people are going to see a dude's head bashed in with a rock. That's the point.
You're going to the Bible to read it.
To learn about God's truth. I mean, I can see there you're getting into the point. Like my friend brought up the idea of, well, sometimes it can teach, from the bad. And I'm like, so you're talking about like Faustus, like a morality tale. Like you've heard of Dr. Faustus? Yeah. It doesn't get into.
I was thinking of the Brothers Grimm. Very grotesque.
The old ones, like the original medieval or whatever they came. Are you talking about the movie or what? What are you talking about?
No, the Brothers Grimm, the original, the fairy tales. Real quick. Meredith says, I'm a huge fan of horror. I'd definitely be watching this later. Okay, well, spoiler alert, Meredith, don't. Yeah, okay. Yeah.
Don't. Anyway, go ahead. So, anyway, yeah, spoiler alert if she hasn't seen those movies.
Yeah.
But, like, Faustus is about a guy who has sold, Dr. Faustus he sold his soul to Satan for goods and pleasures and blah, 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 blah. And it's a morality play about as his life is coming to an end, he's reflecting and how all the things that he got are tasteless in his mouth because, like, he's about to go to eternity in hell. And it actually, this morality tale actually shows the reality of things, that these goods and these things that he exchanged it for wisdom and fame and popularity and women, there was no happiness there anyway. And now he gave it all up to find out that bitter truth, and now he's going to go eternally to hell. And there's this demon that's like, what else do you want? And he's like, I don't want it. I wish I'd never met you. And he's just like, oh, come on, just whatever pleasure you got, take advantage of it because you're going to be ours and at midnight tonight. And
you talking about Faust?
Faust, yeah.
Okay.
And so Faust.
I thought you were saying Faustus.
Faustus, however you say it. Yeah. Faust, yeah. Anyway, so at the end of the story, actually, I think there's I can't remember. I think if there's an old guy or an angel or something like that tries to tell him that there's mercy even now that you can turn. Yeah. And yet he's like, no, it's too late. I've gone too far. Oh, I will give up I have to endure what I've done. And his own vanity basically steps in, and he steps into eternity. Satan comes and gets his soul and basically tears him apart. It doesn't go into huge graphic detail, but the play ends with him being killed by Satan and taken off into hell. Now, there's a part of it that you could say then would be graphic or hard, but the whole story isn't about watching demons go and do all these weird things. It actually reflects a lot of how our world is and Satan's power, his influences.
So why do you think that's different?
Hold on. So, but the difference is it's actually saying don't be Faust. And you're supposed to almost like not weep, but you're just like, you feel sorrow for him. You might even feel sad. You might, you'll learn something like, man, there was that little glimmer of hope. Turn. And he's like, no. And, you've met people who've gone down the wrong roads for years. And then when, people are like, no, you can still turn. I mean, that's the message of Christianity. You can turn around. And some people are like, no, I've come too far. And it's just like, you fool, you're still deceived, and Satan still got a hold of you. And they met their end. So it's a morality tale that's kind of thought-provoking. It can really get you thinking and stuff like that. And now, naturally, some of the encounters, you'll encounter darkness in that aspect, but the point isn't the darkness, okay? For horror, the point is the darkness. And then usually, so that it's not so sadistic, they'll put some trite little bit of something through there to make you feel good that you weren't entertained by people.
Yeah, but I mean, but you're just saying that. I mean, that's begging the question. Like, you're saying that because that's what you believe horror movies are, but that's not necessarily what horror movies are. That's circular reasoning to say, like,
it's not a circular reason.
Yeah, because you're saying horror movies are bad because this is how I see horror movies, and they're bad because they do
tell me what's
the
horror movie then.
Bad.
Then you establish, because what's in a horror movie? Let's see. We got Ring, we've got Grudge, we've got Saw 1 through 20 now. We've got Leprechaun, we've got, I'm going old school here because that's the times when I saw that. Ghoulies.
I'm not saying that those
Friday the 14th, Halloween. Tell me where I'm off on this.
I'm telling you that there are movies like The Conjuring, and Haunting of Hill House, and The Omen, and there are.
Which one is The Omen? I feel like I might have even seen that one. That might help if it is, because it'll help to discuss one we've both seen, because one that you feel like more meets to where you're talking about. You seem to not be cool with slashers, where the point is to watch someone get torn apart.
Yeah, I mean, that's just like that's porn. That's horror porn. Everybody knows that. That's not. Nobody thinks that that's good. But I'm saying, can horror be used in art form? That's the question.
No. We're talking about
the question. No, to me the question isn't, because the question isn't, can horror porn be Christian? Because everybody knows that no.
Well, the question we started is, can horror be Christian? And we're talking about a horror genre. It's the point of these movies is to evoke fear. That's why people watch it, to be scared, to be fearful.
I don't agree with that. I
Why
think
not?
that the point of the movie, because that's oversimplifying it. The point of the point of some of these art pieces that are horrific in some ways, in the same way, like you're saying, that you have horror elements in Lord of the Rings.
I would say scary elements. I wouldn't call them horror.
Oh, they're horror movies. No, they're horrific. When he goes,
horrific?
Oh yeah. When he says, "Give it to me," and his eyes are bulging
all big,
out,
and he's all, yeah.
But
that's I wouldn't call it.
That's
okay.
That's just as scary as anything in The Ring.
I've never seen The Ring, so I couldn't tell you.
I mean, see, one of the problems is you've never seen any good horror movies.
I've seen The Grudge. I mean, work with me here.
The Grudge is not a good horror movie.
I've stopped watching horror. I mean, it's been a while because there is a theme. But all right, then you can, I'm not above understanding. If there's a horror movie, spoiler alert, just tell anyone who doesn't want to hear what goes on and explain. But I'll ask you some questions for clarity, and you tell me. Like, the reason I was asking you about that house thing, the haunted house thing, is because even if things aren't, because I know there's psychological horror too. The whole point is to just be mentally scared, and it's not like a demon's jumping out and people being torn apart. Fine, but a lot of times, like this, it still involves supernatural, which supernatural is not bad in itself, but it actually displays how people respond to the supernatural, and it lays out things that aren't true. That's not the way.
Not true to
you deal with the supernatural. No, it's not true. I mean, either the demonic have that type of power, and God is pretty impotent towards them, or not. I mean, like,
wait. What are you saying? You're saying that the supernatural,
demons
can't control things?
No, I know demons control things, but what I'm saying is the way they offer the solution in these, and I've seen a decent amount of horror. Okay,
but
it's always you. But hold on. No, I've seen other things as well. Okay, now I haven't seen a lot of the modern stuff past 10, 15 years. Sorry, I haven't seen it. But when you look at these things across the boards, when it comes up from what I've seen, and I've seen a decent enough sample where I feel like I can comment, and I know people, and I've read reviews and stuff like that. you see them dealing with the supernatural in demonic ways. They overcome the occult with the occult. They overcome, things with not in the way God says we do. And I think people will start taking their cues from their entertainment, as we learned. I mean, you might dispute that fact, but I think people learn all the time from entertainment, stories, plays, games, all sorts of things. And it not only desensitizes them, but there are lies of Satan that are kind of woven through.
But there are lies of Satan's in Lord of the Rings as well.
Okay, explain.
Do you think that is a righteous movie through and through? There are no lies of Satan in that movie?
I can't think of anything off the top of my head. Doesn't mean that there might not be. I would definitely.
Because you like that movie?
No, I feel like I can disassociate my likes. I do try to reflect on things that I watch. Now, my point of bringing it up is when you come to horror, okay? I mean, let's be real. I mean, I love The Passion of the Christ, but there's some fairly Catholic thing, more of the Catholic tradition as opposed to scripture that's in that. And so I'm not going to necessarily, I guess you'd say, throw the baby out with the bathwater. I think that it errs there in some of these things, and that can cause problems. I'm to the point when it comes up to movies. It's funny you ask. I'm interested in getting into movie production, writing, all that. I feel like we should shoot to honor God in what we do, and it should reflect, even in fiction, the ideas and the truths of God.
But don't those include horrific messages and images? Do they not?
You're still confusing horror. You're confusing dark or evil things, or
no, I'm not.
Horror, I guess you'd say. You're confusing that with the genre. The point is to expose yourself to this stuff. It's not like, what a wonderful tale. It's like, I don't know. Like, explain to me some of the modern ones then. I mean, you tell me what's redeeming about it.
Well, so
we've got to. Yeah, go ahead.
So The Conjuring. The reason so first of all, it doesn't have a lot of graphic. It has probably less than Lord of the Rings, as far as visually. Now psychologically, it's more creepy. There's things you don't know. And I think what one thing that horror can do, in for like these kind of like supernatural horrors or psychological horrors.
Wait, The Conjuring. So I'm looking at these pictures of this demonic floating creature thing. Nun, Conjuring 3, Conjuring 2.
No, I'm talking about The Conjuring, not The Conjuring. Those go on.
It says The Conjuring. I'm looking at a demonic nun with huge sunken eyeballs and white
how's that?
skin.
That's just as scary as anything in Lord of the Rings.
That looks a little more terrifying to me.
Well, it's subjective.
But this is the thing. All right, so we got religious.
My point is this. My point is this: is that introducing people, like, one thing that it does is that it creates a sense of like that people have. It puts out the idea, the proposition that the supernatural exists, and that's something that is lost in this day and age.
No, I don't. Most people believe so. There's very few atheists. Most people believe there's a supernatural. Wherever you go in the world. You go to India, you go to Middle East, they have jinn. They talk about the jinn, and they have exorcism rites.
I'm talking about in America.
Even in America. The average person.
The average person does not live as if there is a supernatural. Now, they may assent to the supernatural, but they do not live as though there is a supernatural. And, even I forget. Even I, as if I'm some kind of supernatural lover. Well, I guess I am. But the point is that we tend to get stuck in the day-to-day physicality of things, and I think that that horror can bring out, especially this sort of supernatural horror, can bring out the importance of the existence and importance of the supernatural.
All right, so if I hit share screen.
Okay.
All right, screen.
While you're doing that, Lisa says, just spent the year on horror books, not movies. I don't do those. 3 years ago, I couldn't have handled what I did this year. She's a missionary. But after a master's in counseling, a lot of horror seems pretty tame at times compared to case studies. Had a great talk with Dr. Truffin about Gothic Lit and its place. Dr. Truffin is, so she went to Tekoa, where I went, and Dr. Truffin is one of our English teachers. I'd like to know more about what she said, Lisa. Thank you for sharing. Thanks for watching, too. Oh, and Samuel Reese says, yes. The answer is yes.
Okay. Now, this is The Conjuring. Can you see it?
Here, I'll share it.
Is it not showing?
No, now it is.
Okay. So we've got...
No, this is not The Conjuring. This is like...
It says Conjuring, Conjuring 3.
Yeah, I'm
Conjuring
talking about 2. The movie The Conjuring. The other ones they're done by other people, and it just became a franchise and became, there's a lot of horror porn in those. But just The Conjuring itself was.
Well, let me ask. We'll start here. What do you think of this stuff that we're looking at?
Well, so far it doesn't look too bad.
No, the nuns. Because if the point is to elicit a response, all right. You take things that are normally benign, a nun, what could be more harmless than a nun, and make her a demonic monster creature thing who looks like, I don't know, he's stabbing.
I know some people that look like that. So.
Come on, dude. Whatever, man. Okay.
It doesn't look that scary to me, but I mean, maybe I've been desensitized, but maybe, maybe there is a place to, for horror. I agree with you.
What do you think of the scriptures when it says, all right, there's a scripture that says, I will put no vile thing before my eyes. Mm-hmm. You got another scripture that talks about,
so does that
anything is
include
good.
Lord of the Rings?
I don't think so necessarily.
But see, is that just because you like it?
No. Okay. I don't think it's just because I like it. Well, I mean, you can reverse it. You could say that you like horror because you like it.
Like
that's
horror.
what it.
I actually don't like horror. I don't watch horror movies. I was forced into watching The Conjuring. Not forced, but a friend of mine wanted to see it very bad, and he didn't want to see it alone. So I went with. A lot of times I have to see him with clients because they want to see him, and I go with them. But I refuse to see any kind of like horror porn. I will assent to go watch, psychological horror.
Give me an example of a psychological horror.
I've been giving you
Conjuring.
The Conjuring.
Well, I don't know. When I go to Conjuring, it shows the demon floating lady. So it looks.
Omen.
Let me see that Omen.
I haven't seen The Omen in a long time, but that's about the possession of a young boy. He's the Antichrist.
I think I saw this years ago. I don't remember it. I remember the kid, the creepy kid, Damien or something like that.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah.
I don't remember it though. That's the thing. So I couldn't tell you. I remember there was supernatural creepy things. I mean, you got a little kid. I mean, come on. The point is, what do you think the point of Omen is?
I don't know.
Sixth Sense. Yeah, I saw Sixth Sense.
Yeah, actually, the Sixth Sense is that's a really good example of horror used to tell a very complicated and important story.
Okay, go on. Explain.
What do you mean? You haven't
like,
seen
what do you mean? What's the explain? Why is it why is it important? I'd be interested.
I think it's important because it talks about the supernatural in terms of what we do in this life and how it reverberates into the next life. And I think that's an important message, first of all.
But the message that they're portraying isn't even a Christian one. It's not like I remember this. I remember seeing Sixth Sense, and I remember there were. I think the babysitter was poisoning the little girl. Yeah. And the little boy just turns, and there's this girl there going, and just and basically the idea is she's alive and she wants her murdering babysitter to be captured, and she lets her mom know the tape is there, or let through that boy who can see dead people. And I mean, the ideas of that in and of itself, that's not their the justice is coming through the undead, or through a dead guy communicating with someone who can communicate with the dead, so that justice can be served. And that's, I mean, that's the antithesis of what we see in the scriptures. I mean, Samuel,
so.
hold on. Samuel got conjured up by a witch, in the witch of Endor, to ask how Saul conjured him up after he had died, and as a way to
he conjured up Samuel.
Yeah, as a way. Hey, how's this battle going to go tomorrow?
Or at least a kindred spirit of Samuel. Yeah.
Something. Yeah. Anyway, long story short, he delved into necromancy, basically, is what it is, and it was a strike against him. It's like he's like, you're, and what I'm seeing is you're seeing a movie that, fine, it's not like the Grudge or these other ones that you're calling bad, but there's an idea that is placed. People are going to be scared. That's the hook. And as they go to be scared, they're introduced to ideas that aren't how things are. They're not how the truths of God. They don't reflect the truths of God.
We can't communicate with the supernatural? No,
we can, but justice and the right thing comes by doing necromancy? No, that doesn't happen. In fact, that's pretty bad, evil way of, like.
I think that's an oversimplistic way of looking at it.
Hold on. You can accuse it of being simplistic, but why? I could say easily, well, that's just you being dismissive, because to put it in plain terms, then you're just dismissing. Why is that simplistic? Because that is that not what happens?
It is, but do we take everything at face value? Everything in Lord of the Rings, do we take that at face value? Do we believe that we overcome evil by throwing rings into...
No, of course not.
All right. But allegory is super important to art, especially narrative art.
But they're not being they weren't being allegorical in Jason Goes to Hell. It was all very literal. They weren't being hold on. They weren't being allegorical in Sixth Sense. You're not even taking Sixth Sense for what it's actually pertaining to be. It's a story about a guy. No, hold on.
I absolutely think it was allegorical.
It's a story about a guy who sees. Everyone jokes, "I see dead people." You know, that's the line that's famous. Yeah. It's about a guy who sees dead people and can communicate with them.
Yeah.
All right. And then he uses it to solve crimes and murders and stuff like that. That removes God out of the picture, because we know from Scripture that consulting the supernatural for stuff like that, that's you're getting in the occult, you're getting into necromancy, you're getting into the black arts, divination, that kind of stuff. And the times in the Scriptures that we see people resorting to such things, it's to their shame, it's to their bad. I mean, Manasseh was one of the reasons he was sent into exile when he was taken captive as a king, was partly because of his divination. That's listed as one of the crimes against him, is that he partook in that.
I absolutely agree. Witchcraft is abhorrent to God. Actually, I want to talk. Okay, that makes me think of a conversation I had earlier today about Harry Potter. But let's table that for a minute, at least.
Yeah.
But so, what if it's an allegory for how children deal with tragedy?
That's you're starting to sound a little postmodern for my taste.
I'm sorry.
Because
here's the thing.
No, hear me out. This is my thing. I'm trying to do. I used to write in the past, trying to get back into writing. Writers have. There's certain things. Hello.
Okay.
Go. Okay. We're there. Writers have intent. There's a way you're supposed to do things, and it's the modern way is when you look at things and you can actually. It's more of you come and then you take from it what you want, and it's very deconstructionist, very postmodern. It means that there is no meaning, really inherent meaning into the work itself. It's just however people see it and take what they take from it.
That's
to me,
what I'm saying.
But I'm saying you're actually. I feel like when you're looking at Sixth Sense in this deconstructionist way, you're taking it and turning it into a metaphor for this and that. Like,
you're not doing that with Lord of the Rings?
Well, he says it's. I mean, it is a metaphor. I mean, am I
Yes.
wrong? Hold on. The ring. All right. What's the ring?
No, Lord of the Rings. Oh,
Yeah, I'm saying, what is the ring?
I don't know. What is the ring? I thought it was just a ring.
No, it was this this thing that was forged. This power, this ring of power. Yeah. And it subjugates the people who take it. It looks like just wonderful ring to get hold of, and it's got power. You can use it to master things, people, bring about supposed good. It's supposed to be an allegory for sin, that you think you master it and you use it, and it does have power, but in fact it then masters you and corrupts you and turns you evil, and it puts you actually under the control of the evil one who forged it. And it's the same idea. Someone who tries to use sin as a way to bring about good, you're basically under Satan's lordship.
You're reading all that into it, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like you. That's
okay.
Not
It's
what
not,
it is.
yes, you're correct. He doesn't have that, but
So all I'm saying is,
hold on. Okay, you're right. I'll give you this.
Okay.
There's the story that I do think, taken literally, you can take it, but there is some allegory there, and they did ask Tolkien on some of these things, and he did get, because they have a philosophy of Lord of the Rings and stuff like that, and he did get into some of this stuff and talk about that this was an allegory, but he did talk about it specifically as a literal story. That's how it was written. We take it as such. But you do see themes of good, evil, and things that reflect our world there. The ring does reflect very much sin for us. We can see that. When you get into how do you make a crossover for M. Night Shyamalan's Sixth Sense?
Well, I think it's very easy to make that crossover, as we do see real struggle with the supernatural one, with death, with mistakes, coping with mistakes of the past, coping with he copes with coping with familial relationships with his mom, trying to understand oddities in struggling in a single parent home, and how he deals with life, and how he deals with suffering and trauma. I think those are very real things.
So you've got some real veins going through it that people can identify with. Do you think it's tainted any by the overly, you put it as overly simplistic, but I don't think you can take it without the other part too. The other part being
the other part? Dead
with
people?
basically the way he does what you're saying is through dead people and communicating with them and then trying to bring justice to them.
Well, here's one point that I think is really important. I think so. Stephen Sanders says it kind of here. I agree with Sam. Horror done right uses fear as a powerful means of storytelling with how to cope with other issues: mental illness, grief, trauma, just to name a few. And I think he said what I was about to say about in storytelling. I think there are certain ways there are certain things that can only be told through eliciting certain feelings, and fear being one of them. Now M. Night Shyamalan's not a Christian.
No.
I'm not expecting him or requiring him to teach me Christian themes. But is there truth to be derived from his art? I would say yes. I think there are some very deep truths about relationship and coping with trauma.
Hold on. I mean, I'll get more specific. All right.
Okay.
Horror uses fear as a powerful means of storytelling with how to cope with other issues. Give me an example. Give me a tangible example, because I don't fully understand what he's saying and what you're saying. Like how does horror? Because you're saying, let me see if I'm understanding you. Mm-hmm. Horror is using fear as a way to cope with life, mental illness, grief, trauma. Is that what you're saying?
I think no. Well, you're bringing horror back into. I'm talking about fear.
Well, I'm looking at it. Horror done right uses fear as a powerful means. You say you agree with this, with how to cope with other issues. Stephen's comment. Yeah. So horror,
in the sense that not horror porn, not slasher porn.
But he's not saying slasher porn. He's saying horror. Right. So we'll give him benefit of the doubt.
Done right. He says, yeah, I know. He says horror done right. And are there horrific things about the world that we need to bring out? So
Well,
I'm
no.
not saying.
The
I'm not saying. Listen,
point-
listen, listen. I'm
Okay.
not saying M. Night Shyamalan's movies should have been more Christian. That's kind of what I'm hearing for you. But I'm saying, can horror be used to elicit Christian to storytell and tease out Christian themes about life? I'd say yes. I think Lord of the Rings does it. I think
It's not. Lord of the Rings is not horror.
no, but it uses horror.
It's not. It's not
It uses,
horror.
does
I
it
mean,
not use fear? Does it not use disgusting things?
fear is a part of
It
our.
has maggots coming in and out of somebody's face. I think that
Where's
would
that?
count. The raves.
No, they're all black. You can't see them. They're like
No,
there's all black. There's a black cowl over their face, and that's it. You can't. There's no maggots coming out of people's faces.
No, there is the dead kings. Remember
No.
the raves? The raves originally were dead kings, gone just as bad as
They just have
that
big long
picture.
faces. Yeah.
No, they're just as bad as that nun. you
Demon
showed.
flying nun. Demon flying nun's a little creepier to me, but fine. You got. But this is my thing. Okay, I got it. There are some things that are scary in it. I'm not against scary, but
Okay.
we're talking to bring it back around.
Mm-hmm.
We're looking at a genre where the point is to scare.
Mm-hmm.
Now you're saying the scaring somehow plays a meaningful role in the storytelling to help people cope with issues.
No,
And I'm saying explain.
that's not what
well,
I said.
well, that's
No,
you said you agree
I
with Stephen.
said- Huh?
Stephen Sandridge, agree with Sam. Horror done right uses fear as a powerful. He said he's saying what you're saying.
No. I'm saying. I think you're misinterpreting what he's saying a little bit. Is that you can
Yeah,
teach,
clarify it for me. I'm not understanding you guys.
You can teach lessons about how to cope with trauma, with fear. But see, fear. So fear as a means of eliciting certain states of mind. Like there is just fear is something that God uses that is natural in our daily existence and daily living. that
Tell
can
me
be
how
used-
horror uses fear to help people cope with
No,
trauma.
I don't know. No, it doesn't.
Give me an
necessarily
example.
Help cope with no fear doesn't help cope with trauma, but fear can help teach a lesson about coping.
Look, give me an example.
So so it can kind of help tease out the feelings of trauma. For somebody who hasn't had trauma, there's a certain amount of empathy that you can have because you are in the same state of fear, and you can put yourself in their position in an empathetic way and sort of understand what they're going through.
So The Conjuring
Mhm.
can be therapeutic for
No, no,
people.
Not therapeutic. No. See, you keep coming back to that. Not therapeutic.
I'm trying to
saying-
tie it back together is what I'm doing. I'm trying to take what you're doing and try to put together to make a sense of what you're saying. Because right now I've got all these parts that are floating around that don't seem to fit. And so I'm like, fit them for me then, because I'm not
Okay.
understanding it.
So The Conjuring. So you have to think about it in 3D here, okay? So that there are elements that put you in a state, and it's only you have to believe, and I don't know if you do or not, that there are things that you can only understand in a state of fear, because of
Give me an
empathy,
example.
trauma. You can only understand certain traumatic experiences.
Give me an example. Like what kind of trauma? Rape? Are we talking about like someone getting their
well-
arms sawed off with a shotgun, blown off with a shotgun, or World
Any
War
of
II, a
those.
guy gets hit with a tank shell? Give me something tangible.
Yeah, any of those. So like in and we got to go soon. But
Right.
in The Sixth Sense, like the trauma of a little boy having lost his father, let's say, or having living in fear because of mental illness, that can only sort of be understood by. So one of the magic of movies is it's better. It has a different way of putting people into the same. It has I would say maybe more shallower, but a quicker way of putting people into a state that you
Of?
can. Well, it depends. So in this case, we're talking about fear. And and certain kind of fear, and a certain kind of pain, that helps us put ourselves in that person's shoes. You know what I mean?
Okay, so you're basically saying you get to live vicariously through them and experience what they're doing without experiencing it yourself. And you can identify with having your mom possessed, or is that what you're saying?
No, you can understand trauma better. You can understand fear. So I think one of the biggest reasons that horror exists, that people like horror, is because we have an innate, it is just part of the human existence to need to feel thrill, to need to
That's my point. I agree with you. I actually agree with you. I think thrill, and what they do is they want to be scared. So the point of horror, so we're back to where we started in the very beginning.
No. But here's the thing: is it's not thrill in the sense of like you can go on a roller coaster for thrill, but I'm talking about thrill in the sense of like there is something lacking. I believe in a modern society. In our society today, we are not in danger. And so we have something innate that we need to feel a sense of danger. And I think that some movies can use that to teach us about deeper. I think it can teach us deeper truths about relationships in terms of trauma, relationships in terms of fear, and understanding people's fear, and understanding people's grasp of reality, and people's how to deal with supernatural.
See, I hear you. I don't think people are going to it for that reasons. I think they're going for what you originally stated. We live in a pretty tame society, and it's a way to feel alive. You get around there, you get your adrenaline pumping, you get scared, tense, that stuff. You feel like you've lived a little bit. It's why the same thing drives people to jump off, bungee jumping, do all the other crazy, basically chase the endorphins kind of thing.
Is that need invalid?
My take is this: if you actually live God the way God intends, you'll get. I have a problem in some ways with living for that, because then you're living for a feeling, a chemical firing in the head, and an experience.
Well, I'm not. I don't know if people are living for that or not.
I think a lot of people live for that, whether it be drugs, alcohol.
I can't read their minds. But
you're a counselor, man. Come on. I'm sure you've encountered a lot of people, and you can if you boil down.
People are complicated, man, and I don't think they're just living for for one thing or another. I think there are certain really complicated levels of pain and self-doubt that are creating a lot of these things. And so I don't know if they're living for this or that. I think they're trying to deal with complicated mess of sin in their life.
Yes, yes.
Pain.
That I totally agree with.
And I think that.
But sometimes the way some people, sometimes what people do to cope with it is to, some people will go to a movie to see someone cut up. Slasher movies are very popular.
That's why
they don't make 5 saws if they don't. Yeah, but
that's why I call it slasher porn.
There would be people who would disagree and say that that's not porn. They'd say it's just a fun movie, dude. You're being approved. That's what they would say. I would disagree with them.
I would say that they're them too.
Yeah, I would say they're being sadistic. They're wanting to see someone, and you'll see Hollywood's even uncomfortable with it. They'll always make the guy a butthole who gets. You know who's going to die. You're going to die. You're the mean guy. Or, in the 80s stuff, it's, they had sex. They're going to die now. And, it's all these things. They even spoof the genre with the Scream movies by taking all these elements.
Look, I agree. As a genre, slasher porn, there's nothing redeemable for me.
But my point is, I'm saying what attracts people to it is they are getting something from it. And to me, the horror genre on its own is dark. It's the end. The thing you're chasing is the darkness, the fear, all that.
And I'm saying that's not true. I don't think fear is irredeemable. I don't think fear is intrinsically evil. And I think that it can be used.
I don't either. We're told to fear God. If fear is bad, why do we do that? Fear of God's the beginning of wisdom.
And thus, I think that horror can be used for good.
Now, I can go as far as a morality tale like Faust.
Okay.
You're
talking about one of the most
because they're showing evil, but they're showing it in a realistic way. And it's not, the end result isn't to watch someone torn apart or see scary demons. It's more cerebral. You're getting into the ideas behind it. Here's a guy who sold his soul for things that cannot satisfy. And when God has come to try to, hey, there's still time to turn, he rejects it in his own vanity and then meets his end and goes to hell. You're meant to look at that and learn and be like, but that's humanity. I know people that did do that. I know people that have died, sadly, that have gone that route. And so it's like, it's meant to cause one to reflect and to remember and yada, yada, yada. So I can go that far, but the horror stuff, when it's just the genre, the end, Evil Dead or whatever, all these, these things, it's just like, it really is to go just to be scared, and you encounter the darkness, and a lot of the darkness that you see, it's woven through it pretty thickly is usually all these dark ideas and stuff that don't work in reality. No little holy water is going to, cause the guys to flee, or, you can cast out the demons with the demonic. Jesus said a kingdom divided against itself will not stand. You see these things that are actually very anti-Christian. And if you feed there often enough, it's going to start to shape the way you see the world and react to it. And so I don't see how you can redeem it. Now I'm open to hear, which is what led to my discussion with my friend the other day, how we could do it, but I don't see how it is, because the point of horror, and I think there's a difference between horror genre and a movie that has some, what I guess you would say horrific things in it. There's a ways to show it that isn't glamorize or glorify it. I watched a movie, oh gosh, what was it called? It's a Christian movie about the Rwandan genocide, and these three families are tied up together. It was actually really good. I wasn't sure it was going to be good, but it was actually pretty good. And in the movie, it showed the Rwandan genocide in a way where you felt the of it, and you empathized with these people and what they were going through, and you felt their tension. But you saw, how, because it's a Christian story, you see how God, first protected them from this and directed them. But then it also got into, it didn't shy away from real things that are horrifying, but it did it in a way that the focus wasn't that, to just indulge in it. There was a scene where there was, I hate to say it, there was a rape in it, okay? And the way they showed it, they didn't show it. They should, there's a way to show something horrific where it's implied and understood, where you get the emotional impact of what's happened to this character. But at the same time, it's just like, we're going to show this and bang, bang, bang. And where they indulge in it, like almost the art form as a means to indulge in something evil. So it's sadistic.
Well, okay. All right, we got to go. But I will agree with you. I do agree.
Stinks. I feel like we're starting to actually get some traction on this. But anyway, maybe we can do a part two. I don't know.
Yeah, because I do want to talk about Harry Potter. But
okay.
Ultimately, I agree with you that horror is not, for the most part, is not a very useful means of delineating the truth. However, and I think you agree with this, because this is my point. My point is that I do believe that you can use horror used right. You can tell stories that cannot be told any other way.
You're talking like a horror movie, like a horror story?
Movie, yeah, story. Movies are stories.
I don't know if I would agree.
Well, agree to disagree.
Yeah, fair enough. I'd be interested to hearing you explain a little more. So maybe we could do a part two. I don't know. We'll get some people. It looks like there's a bunch of comments they can chime in. Yeah,
I'm sure that we'll start getting. We'll get more discussion in the excuse me, comment section below. For now, I gotta go, man. I'm so sorry. Yeah. But it's. I'm also dying of heat. I don't know if you. I've been getting redder and redder. I gotta turn my air conditioner on full blast.
No problem.
All right. I think it was a good conversation. I did not get irritated. I hope you didn't get irritated.
No, this is cool.
Yeah. I thought it was good, and I look forward to. We have some. we have some things to talk about. We may have special guests to talk about coming forward that people will be pretty interested in, especially people from North Carolina. So we'll leave it at that. Right? Yeah?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Well, thanks a lot, man. And thank you for everybody who tuned in. Sam, the other Sam,
Brianna,
Steven,
Lisa, more Sams. Oh, it's Sams.
Oh, yeah. No, there's only two. Yeah, and Lisa Harlow. Okay. So I'll talk to you later, brother.
All right. See you, man.
See you, everybody.